NFL podcast wild card weekend. We got 6 wild card games, 2 on Saturday, 3 on Sunday, and 1 on Monday night. Well, what a time to be alive, the new normal in the NFL. We are returning with Dinsick, the top right of the screen. Good morning from sunny California, Drew. Good to see you. At the bottom left of the screen for joining us now live on Facebook, YouTube, and Matchbook's Twitter channels. Fabian, Sommer, and Rob Pizzola is also on board. Gentlemen, good to have you all back. We skipped week 18 for good reason. Let's be honest about it. There was a lot of variables and a lot of moving parts that we just couldn't keep up with. But we're back for the wild cards. And before we get into that, let's take a look at the outright market first, the Super Bowl. It's a pretty decent one, and Green Bay Packers currently industry best price at Matchbook at 4.9 across the UK and Ireland on the odds checker grid. Kansas City Chiefs 5.6, the Bills at 8.8, the Bucs at 9.4. We're also best price on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, the Rams 13.0, Cowboys at 13.5, the Bengals 19.5, 49ers 27. I like the look of that price. I'll get to you in a while soon about that. Cardinals 27, the Pats 28. Raiders 65. I'm not even going to insult you guys by saying the Steelers. Maybe the Eagles have more of a chance, but I'm not even going to go there. But let's play a game, guys. The top 3 in the market, the Packers, the Chiefs, the Bills. If you were to Dutch these 3 outcomes, that's more or less an even money shot at matchbook.com. I'm going to go around the houses here and say Packers, Chiefs, Bills, or the field. Drew Dinsick. For you first, sir, you look confident. What are you going to take? You're going to take these 3 at the top of the market, or are you going to take the field?
I'm going to take the field, and it's only because I don't find the AFC prices to be especially compelling right now. I think in general, because these 2 teams ended up as the 2 and 3 seed, and they are destined on a path for a divisional matchup, and you are going to lose one of those teams in round 2 of the playoffs, I don't think that you can realistically bundle them and expect to have a plus EV bet there. And realistically, that opens the door up wide for the Tennessee Titans, who only have to beat one of those 2 teams to get to the Super Bowl. And even beyond that, they may not have to play either. Who knows? It's not like the Kansas City Chiefs are melting faces with their offense lately. So it's entirely possible that you could see upset this week with the Pats. I don't think the Steelers are in the line for an upset, but who knows? How things may trickle out, and if the Chiefs even make the AFC title game. But the way that the playoff field broke, I think it broke extremely favorably for the Titans. I think it broke extremely favorably for Dallas in the NFC, actually. They have to face the Niners, obviously, this week as the shortest favorite. But there's a lot of warning signs with Green Bay, too. I mean, I know that anyone's going to have to go through Lambeau. It's a cold place to play. It's an inhospitable environment. But boy, oh boy, does that defense lack confidence right now, the way that they are playing. So give me the field, and I would actually say that that's probably a fairly EV bet.
All right, Suma, what about you, bud? Are you taking the top 3? Are you taking something further down the line with the field?
I would also take the field here for basically all the reasons that Drew has mentioned. I mean, we could basically end up with Titans and Bills in the championship game for the AFC. At home for the Titans. Bills at Chiefs, likely the matchup in round 2. So there goes 1. Packers, they're the faves for me, I think, for a reason. But as Drew has mentioned, we don't know whether all those key players that are supposed to come back will actually play at 100% level. Their defense, not really good. Their run defense cannot stop anyone. And there are quite a few teams that can actually run the ball in the NFC. So, I just think that with that bet, the upside for the field is a little bit higher than taking those 3.
And Suma, even just one selection at a big price. I think we were discussing yesterday. 49ers, 27.0 49ers, not a bad price.
Yeah, so I mean, it always comes down whether you think that you can get a better price when you roll over the money line into the Super Bowl. So that's something you have to consider. I think there are also some way shorter prices out there, but at 27, I really like the 49ers at the from a value upside perspective, because the Niners are at their healthiest they've been all season. They are basically at 100% health right now when you consider Jimmy Garoppolo being capable of throwing the ball with his thumb injury. They can run the ball on anyone. They have 3 excellent weapons, and I would make the case that this current version of the 49ers might actually be better than their 2019 version. They have a solid secondary. There are some holes, but they're getting guys like Emmanuel Mosley and K'Wan Williams back this week. Their defensive line might be the deepest unit in the league right now. So once they have the lead, they can make their D-line work for them. Shanahan is one of the best play callers still in the league. Jimmy Garoppolo is once again one of the most efficient guys in the league, even though his individual performance on tape might not always match up. But I think this Niners team is very scary. And when you consider their path, I mean, the Cowboys, we will get to that, but the Cowboys cannot stop the run. I think that Cowboys defense might come down to earth this week. Who knows? This could be a very exciting game, probably the best matchup. And then the 49ers will likely go to Green Bay. And like Drew has said, Green Bay's defense, major question marks. They cannot stop the run. Tampa Bay's defense also has some, let's say, weaknesses up front on their defensive line that haven't been there in recent years. So I think the 49ers, just from a value and upside perspective, probably the best bet for me along the long shots.
Rob, this is probably one of the years where you look at the top of the market, even coming into the playoffs. I don't know if you really want to be with the favorites right now. It's a big field behind those top three.
This is the first year in a long time where I actually have zero gut feel on who I think is going to be in the Super Bowl. A lot of people keep asking me, like, what's your Super Bowl prediction? The reality is I have no idea. There's just so many teams that could possibly be there. The parity is high. So I'd rather have the field on this bet. In terms of a long shot bet, you got the Patriots at 28 there, which in my opinion is a great number. Considering, listen, I understand that they're playing the Bills in the first round, but if they win that game, they're going to avoid Kansas City in round 2 no matter what. So I think that's a big factor when you're betting the Patriots in terms of futures. And whatever you think about the Patriots, when you look at what I'll call the fringe contenders this year for the Super Bowl, the Patriots are a team that the market for about a month and a half consistently had in the top 5. They're the only team of these fringe contenders where we know that their ceiling is a top 5 football team, and the market had them there consistently. So I think that obviously you're unlikely to win that bet, but I think from a pure value perspective, the Patriots should be priced closer to 20-1.
All right. Yeah, some good opinions on those. So let's dive into it. The 6 games, wildcard weekend. We're probably not going to spend the normal amount of time as we do on our main slate, but we will get into it thereafter. Anyway, first game, Raiders, Bengals, Saturday night in Cincinnati. I think this is one of the games of the weekend for me, but let's take a look at the betting as we have it currently at Matchbook.com. The Raiders at 2.96. I won't lie. saw this yesterday, 3.3 they were yesterday, and I thought that was a cracking bet. The Bengals at 1.46. 5.5 is the main line. It was 6 yesterday at Matchbook.com. If you want to back the Raiders plus 6, it is available at 1.87 on site. 49 is the total. Sommer, you've played the Raiders plus 6. It's obviously a very key number. It's a number that you're very keen on, of course, to be on this bet. But why are we backing, and why should we be backing the Raiders plus 6?
We are backing the Raiders because I just don't believe that there is a 6-point difference between those two teams. The Bengals have, as great as they have been all season, they have also been very inconsistent. I think when we compare those two teams, obviously Bengals are clearly the better team on paper. They have more upside with their passing game, but they have also been very inconsistent over the course of the season. Their defense has been declining. Zach Taylor always has that game in him where you are questioning what he's even doing there from a play calling and decision-making perspective. So I just don't think that there should be, even when we consider the rest advantage for the Raiders, I don't think that there should be a 6-point difference in this matchup. I think it was in week 11 when the Raiders played the Bengals. That score was, I think, 32-13 in the end in favor of the Bengals. And that score was a little bit misleading because I think the Raiders were actually more efficient on a down-to-down basis. But in the end, the Bengals just pulled away, I think, on 2 short fields after a turnover and after an interception and after a fumble. So that end score was a little bit misleading. The Bengals couldn't quite move the ball in that one. Raiders were also struggling offensively. It was basically just a bad game, and somehow the Bengals were able to win by 20 points. This time, when we think about what's good about the Raiders, it's certainly their defensive line with their front four rush, and that's the strength of their defense. And we just saw what Max Crosby did with Storm Norton on Sunday Night Football, where he was basically consistently trying to pressure Justin Herbert, who did some sick ass throws in that game. And this time, right tackle Riley Reef is still out, so it will be backup tackle Isaiah Prince against Max Crosby. That offensive line for the Bengals has not been good in pass protection at all this season. And when we look at how well Joe Burrow has played, he has been playing a fantastic season, but there's a pretty drastic split between him killing blitzes of opposing defenses and playing against standard 3 or 4 man rushes. Against 4 man rushes, he is averaging 0.002 EPA per pass. And against blitzes, according to Sports Info Solutions, he's averaging 0.38 EPA per pass. Just for comparison, 0.38 EPA per pass would be better than Patrick Mahomes in his MVP season or Aaron Rodgers in his MVP season last year. So he's just been killing the blitz all season long. And against standard 4-man rushes over the course of the season, he's basically been an average quarterback in terms of just efficiency. He has also thrown 12 of his 40 interceptions against 4-man rushes. And guess what? The Raiders are the team, I think, with the lowest blitz rate in the entire league. So the Raiders will just try to attack that offensive line, try to play sound coverage behind it. That won't always work because the secondary is also vulnerable and the Bengals can easily attack that. But I don't think this is a kind of game like we saw against the Ravens or the Chiefs where Joe Burrow can just chuck it up and Jamar Chase wins like 4, 5, or 6 one-on-one matchup in the air consistently. I think the Raiders will make it very hard on them to move the ball downfield. They might not have that easy game offensively. And on the other side, the Bengals defense, they are on a decline. Their pass defense is not great. They have holes over the middle of the field. They cannot defend tight ends very well. Their line-making corps is a major weakness, and that's basically the offense for the Raiders. Darren Waller and Hunter Renfrow over the middle. That's where they will try to attack the Bengals, and I think they will also have quite some success. And overall, to put it all together, I just don't think that there is such a big discrepancy between both teams, and I would not be surprised if we see kind of a wire-to-wire game that might not be over until late in the fourth quarter.
Hey, Sommer, just before I come off this, I see one chat there or a comment in the live chat. The main line is 5.5 now, and we do still have a 6. You have to pay for that 6 a bit, obviously. Look, and at a Matchbook and other sports books, you will get alternative lines. What would you go as far for the 6 though, Suma? Like, I mean, it's 1.87 currently. You can back minus or plus 5.5 at 1.993. Where would you go as far as to get it?
I would probably go as far as plus 6, minus 115, minus 120. I think it's important to get the plus 6 here. And I would not play it at plus 5 or plus 5.5.
Okay. Yeah, so you play it down as far as 1.83. Drew, I don't want to get into narratives here, right? But you've got to look at Cincinnati team that's been in great form the last couple of weeks. This is still a very young and inexperienced team offensively and coaching-wise. It's a lot of points to be laying in their first playoff game, right?
Yeah, 100% yes. And I think we've seen a pretty clear pattern out of the Bengals this season. Suma brought up a lot of the key points. I can add a little bit here, but against the especially aggressive defenses, Joe Burrow has been lights out. And it is because he has such a diverse set of wide receivers and he evaluates the pre-snap, the pre-snap defensive formations extremely well. And he makes a decision, in unbelievably quick. His decision making is just superlative. All of that goes right out the window in this particular matchup because of the way Gus Bradley coordinates his defense. And we know Gus Bradley is not going to bring a surprise. Like, he does what he does, and it happens to work out to be good against Joe Burrow and bad against Pat Mahomes. And I think if you use that kind of rubric, you've had some success in general this year. The first matchup between these two teams, ultimately, it was a 16-13 game. If you're going to the if you're going to the window and laying the points with the Bengals, you're hoping for exactly the same outcome where they got those late turnovers because they got to pin their ears back a little bit on the pass rush. They got the forced fumble. They got the pick, and realistically, that's the only way. That's the only kind of path to victory here I see for the Bengals covering. The Bengals in general, they have some pretty obvious flaws, in my opinion, and it starts with the head coach. The scheme is not plus EV in general. He has sort of a gut instinct on when to go for it and when not to. Sometimes it's right, sometimes it's not. And in general, when the margins are narrow, that can be a general problem. Now, if this game were on, let's say they put this one on Monday night, which is what they should have done instead of the early Saturday slot. I don't understand why exactly this one got kind of the redheaded stepchild time slot here. But if this was a Monday night game and you had a little extra rest for the Raiders and it was a little bit less of a disadvantaged travel situation, I would probably be beating the drum that they should be considered for an upsets here. Realistically, the situation's not great considering how emotional that last game was, and the quick turnaround, plus the fact that Cincinnati really has not been asked to travel going back to December 19th was the last time they had to leave the state of Ohio. So they've been comfortably at home. They got to basically rest all their key players last week. So they're in a decent spot situationally. All that said, matchups in this contest all favor an under, in my opinion. I think 49 is still bettable to the under. I agree with Suma that the best of the side is gone. Don't love 5.5 as much as I was interested in a 6. So at this point, my strongest look on the card on this particular game would be under 49.
49 available at 1.95 at matchbook.com. Rob, I think you're largely in agreement with both guys' sentiments on this one.
I am. They did a really good job of breaking it down. I think with a lot of these games, 5 of the 6 this week, we have a previous matchup where we can draw at least some conclusions from as well. And a lot of people will look at the final score of that first meeting, like Drew said, 32-13 Bengals. They'll think it was a blowout. That game was 16-13 with just over 5 minutes left in the game. And in fact, when we look deeper at that, Las Vegas had a plus 1.8 net yards per play in that game. The Bengals offense averaged only 4.1 yards per play. It was one of their lowest totals of the entire season. So how did the Bengals win the game? Well, they had 1 penalty for 5 yards. The Raiders had 7 for 77. You look at third downs in that game, the Bengals were 8 of 16, which is well above their season rate, which is 39%. The Raiders were horrible on third down in that game, 1 of 7. That's well below their seasonal rate of 37%. So I think there was a lot of luck involved in that game. And in fact, when we look at what the market closed at there, I mean, granted, this is a couple months ago, but the Bengals are a very small favorite on the road in Las Vegas in that game. The majority of the week, it was a pick. Bengals took a little bit of late money. There's been a pretty drastic adjustment here. Part of it is a lot of people think the Raiders just aren't deserving of being in the playoffs. Maybe they aren't, but they got here. That's irrelevant for this matchup altogether. And on top of that, I think a lot of people are really overvaluing potentially a bad schedule spot. I mean, you hear it all the time this week. Oh, the Raiders went to overtime. They had to play an extra quarter. Now they're getting the short rest. We don't have a large sample of this happening over the history of the NFL, but there's really no logical. I mean, I really think that if that's a factor, it's already baked into the line here because this is quite an inflated price. So I'm in agreement with the guys. I like the Raiders in this game. I made Cincinnati a 4-point favorite. I think the Raiders are live to potentially pull an upset here as well. I mean, it's not a game where I see the Bengals offense. Suma really hit a lot of great points on the Bengals in terms of Joe Burrow facing the blitz, but the Raiders play a lot of coverage. That's not what the Bengals want to see. And if you look at the Bengals last month or so, they really struggled to move the ball against defenses that can get after the quarterback, the 49ers being one, the Chargers being the other. So I think the Raiders, as much as I don't like this football team, I think they're live in this spot, and I think they're a decent play here.
Drew, jump back in quickly before we come off this one.
We didn't mention it, but Burrow's knee injury is also in the back of my head here.
Yep, good point.
Pass rush for the Raiders is legit. They have a positive matchup against a poor pass pro, and if Burrow's mobility is questioned whatsoever, it could be a long day for him.
All right, Drew, just on the 49, is that enough to get your selection under 1.95, 49?
Yeah, I'm fair with that.
All right. Raiders +6 at 1.87 at matchbook.com and under 49 at 1.95. All right, let's move swiftly on to Saturday night's marquee matchup, the Patriots and the Bills. Yes, we have seen this one as well before. This is our third time, of course, this year. 2.8, you can back the Patriots. The Bills at 1.5. The Patriots getting a 4-point start at 1.99, very close to even money, of course, and 44 is the total, slightly shaded towards the over. Rob, we were chatting pre-production on this, 1.97, the Patriots +4, you're getting a bit of extra value, but anyway, explain the Patriots +4 as a side for you.
Yeah, I mean, these teams played on Boxing Day. Everyone's going to remember that game. It's the most recent one. The Bills put together. Oh yeah, I guess, is Boxing Day not a thing in the U.S.? Or I don't know. I'm just laughing. Whatever.
I love it.
Yes.
Working for UK podcast. Good man. Love it.
Well, yeah, Canada's got Boxing Day too. I mean, we follow all the UK stuff as well. So, all right, they played recently is the point I'm getting at. And a lot of people look at that game. The Bills won pretty comfortably, deserving win, but late down conversions, turnovers played a huge factor in that game. Buffalo was 6 out of 12 on third down. They were 3 out of 4 on fourth down. So they hit 50% on their late down conversions. You look at the turnovers. Mac Jones, he had 2 turnover-worthy plays in the game. Both resulted in interceptions. One of them was deep in Buffalo territory. Josh Allen had 2 turnover-worthy plays in that game. The Patriots dropped both of those interceptions. One of them would have been a pick six. People forget this. Buffalo was up 26-21 in the fourth quarter, and Josh Allen threw an out, about a 10-yard out, should have gone for a pick six. It got dropped. Completely different game. So I get the sentiment of, and listen, this has been a thing for many years. Quarterbacks making their first career playoff start, they've not fared well for the most part. It's a pretty large sample going back a couple decades now. When we start to strip out quarterbacks that actually had a successful NFL career, though, they fare fairly well. It's most of the guys that get to the playoffs that are bad quarterbacks. You know, Mark Sanchez, first career playoff game, they tend to struggle. I think Mac Jones has shown enough this year to consider that he'll be a good long-term player in the NFL. I'm not overly concerned with this being above him, especially considering the games that he played at Alabama as well. He's been in pressure situations before, so I'm not really buying into that. And we're very focused on the way that the Patriots closed the season, which was poorly. And I agree. I mean, down the stretch, they faltered a little bit. The Bills played 3 home games in the past month. It was against the Jets, the Falcons, the Panthers, where the Bills needed late scores in every one of those games to separate from those teams. They were beating the Jets 13-10 going into the fourth quarter last week. They outscored the Falcons 15-0 in the second half. That was a very close game. Panthers, they outscored 14-6 in the second half. So it's not like the Bills have been putting away these teams at home either. I just do not see enough separating these teams to warrant a 4-point spread. I'm surprised it's here. I get why it's here, because the most recent time that they played, the Bills looked very good in that game, and no one was really interested in the Patriots right now. I feel like this is an opportunity where you get New England probably at the lowest that they've been in a long, long time. Seems to me like a field goal game. I don't know one way or the other. Bills more likely to win for sure, but this number to me is a little bit too high. So I like the Patriots quite a bit this week.
Yeah, and Drew, Rob referenced it there, that Boxing Day fixture. We took the Bills +3 that night, and we were pretty bullish about doing so. But this number does want you to kind of take the Patriots, doesn't it? There's a small bit too much respect for the Bills here.
Yeah, I mean, we all remember where we were on Boxing Day, of course, sitting on the couch watching Josh Allen perform heroics, converting fourth downs in most improbable fashion possible. And yeah, I mean, our case going into that game was Bills are the play because there's not much margin between these two teams. It could go either way. And the Bills happened to convert every high leverage moment, and got the lucky breaks that they needed to get the comfortable win. And you come out of that game, if you bet the Bills, you're beating your chest like, I knew it. I knew these guys were for real and the Patriots were frauds, right? And that tends to crystallize your opinion of these teams in a way that I think is influencing this market. 4.5 points. The opener was silly. I think this is very clearly a 3-point margin between these two teams, no matter what metrics you're using. And I think Patriots are the side if you're going to get involved with either of these 2 points. And I think Rob's take was exactly correct. The team with the ball last probably going to win this one. The team that gets the breaks on fourth down, the team that gets the interceptions, fumble recoveries, etc., is going to be the one that ultimately wins here, because there's just not much margin. And as great as Josh Allen is at times, he's a little wild, he's a little dangerous, he's a little sloppy, and he's had some moments in some high pressure games where he has completely lost his cool. And I would not be surprised at all to see that against the Belichick-led defense that is, it's trying to prey on that. And overall, like, the only other angle I can add beyond everything Rob said, which I completely agree with, is I think both of these defenses are a little overrated. Neither of these teams played especially tough schedules. When they did go up against formidable opponents, they got pushed around a little bit. And so I do think that, even though both teams are relatively healthy and you have two good defensive coordinators and a lot of talent, this total was too low at 43. I got involved. It's up to 44 now. I thought maybe with the kind of the recency of that wind game and the cold weather reports and all that we may see more pressure on this thing and it would get down to 42 and a half. Not going to happen. I think 44 is where this probably closes. And there's a little bit of plus EV to the overs by my numbers. I would have made it 44 and a half. So Patriots and an over here, both pretty narrow margins for me.
Sommer, you're relatively neutral on this game, but anything to add, any counterpoints to the guys why we should maybe be slightly cautious on the Pats?
Yeah, no strong opinion on that one. I think I'm pretty much around market with this one.
Yeah.
If I had to make any bet, if someone forced me, I would probably take the more experienced quarterback. There are some concerns for me about Mac Jones, first playoff game on the road, tough environment, very cold game. This is all pretty much subjectively, but Josh Allen and the Bills offense, they are legit. They looked much better against the Patriots in that second game, even though I think they have been very, very inconsistent over the course of the season. They are getting many Xanders back. They should be a full go on offense. Their offensive line is, I think, also healthy for the most part. I think when it comes down to the passing game, I trust the Bills just a little bit more than the Pats with Mac Jones in this one. But I also agree with Rob that this might be the market low point for the Patriots.
And Rob, speaking of that market low point, you selected +4 at 1.99. If I offered you 4.5, 1.92, would that potential to get there? That's obviously even better than -110.
They're probably the exact same conversion for me. Very close. Okay. So you can pick one or the other. It doesn't matter. I'm typically a fan of paying less vig overall. So I'm fine with the 4. Like, I make this very close to 3. So I like the 4.
I just couldn't. One kind of quick thing. I'm so mad that the Patriots didn't just beat the Dolphins. I would have loved to get some Patriots money line against Joe Burrow and the Bengals. And then on the flip side, we could have just gone to the absolute woodshed with the Bills against this Raiders team. And then we would have gotten Bills Chiefs, which I'm excited about. So, the AFC playoff picture did not break favorably for us as bettors.
Week 18 just messed up a lot of stuff. We should just finish in week 17 and just been done with it. Yeah, it would have been much better. All right, but that's the way it is. Let's just take the one selection there, because I think the overs got slightly away from us. I think we might be chasing it at the current number. So the Pats +4 at 1.99 at Matchbook.com. Before I get to the next 4 games, let's take a look at the current sign-up offer available for NFL podcast listeners at Matchbook.com. If you use the bonus code NFL20 when signing up, and you bet 20 and you'll get 20. And obviously there's plenty of games to keep you occupied this weekend. Use the bonus code NFL20, those are the digits, 20 when signing up at Matchbook.com to avail of this £20 free bet, or dollars or euro or whatever else, or whatever currency you are using. Eagles Bucks. Drew, I'll start with you first for this one, but let's take a look at the betting. First game on Sunday evening in South Florida. You can back the Eagles at 4.0, the Bucks at 1.28. 8.5 is the main line. Obviously, the Bucks favored here at 2.02. You can back the Eagles at 1.89, getting an 8.5 point start. 47.5 is the total. Is that low? That seemed low to me. I don't know. I know there's a lot of ball control with that Eagles offense, but Drew, this is a tricky game in terms of a side or a total. Anything here for you?
Yeah, the market is interesting in this one. So I got involved with the Bucks at a good price the first time these two teams played on Thursday night. I think I had 6.5, closed 7. It was also in Tampa, or was it in Philly? I can't.
It was
remember.
It was a road game,
Philly?
I think.
It was in Philly.
Yeah.
All right, so it was in Philly. They closed 7, and at that point, the Bucs were a healthier team offensively and not in as good a state defensively. So those are kind of the important factors in terms of evaluating the two markets. And honestly, there are 2 very good things about the Eagles that have gotten them to this point. Their offensive line does a tremendous job in every facet of their roles and responsibilities, and their defensive line can disrupt the opposing offenses enough to get key stops. And both of those good things match up exactly with the strengths of the Bucs. So that's kind of a wash, right? They're not going to be able to get much going in the run game here against the stout, the incredible strength of the Bucs defense. You're not going to be able to get much going with your defensive line against the incredible pass protection of the Buccaneers offensive line. So Tom Brady should have time here, and even going to his D, C, E, F receivers, he should be able to put points on the board, put the game state into a positive situation here for the Bucs, and be able to play with the lead. All that favors, that suggests that you're going to get to a situation where the game becomes, can Jalen Hurts throw their way back in? Most of the back door for the Eagles in the first matchup between these two teams was because the Bucs were playing prevent defense, and the Eagles were like, fine, we'll run then. And, they gashed them on the ground for 20 yards a clip right at the end of that game. And get the backdoor score, and then go for 2 and cover the 6.5 as well. So that was a very memorable beat among many bad beats for me this season. But regardless, I think the Bucs are the right side on this one. I'm not running to the window to lay 8.5 points, considering who they have out there offensively and the chances that backdoor could come in this game as well. But I think the Buccaneers make for a spectacular teaser leg at 8.5. You can get them down past 3. That's probably the only advantage teaser leg on the board this week. And you just got to figure out what you want to pair it with.
Yeah, so I don't think this is a game we're going to spend a whole lot of time on, because I don't know if there's much of an edge there at the current price of Matchbook.com. But give me your 2 cents in this. If I was to say 8.5 with the Eagles, could you make a case for that, getting that amount of points?
I could make a small case for the Eagles, because I just think that their offensive line, and in combination with the run threat of Jalen Hurts, this is so good and so special right now that they can give the Buccaneers fits. The Bucs over the second half of the season, they have not faced really good rushing offenses. They have faced the Giants, the Panthers, the Jets, and the Saints twice, who cannot run the ball very well at all. The Bills, the Falcons, they have only faced one good rushing team in the Colts, who have been throwing the ball on them for most of the game. But over the second half of the season, the Buccaneers defense ranks about average at best at stopping the run in rushing success rate, EPA per rush, DVOA. Over the course of the season, they ranked 12th in rush DVOA, and they were first last year. Jason Pierre-Paul is not having a great season. Lavonte David might not be playing this week. So I think there is a path for success offensively for the Eagles when they run the ball. And I think it will also be tough for the Bucs to stop Jalen Hurts on the ground. But then on the other side, even though the Bucs are without Chris Godwin and without Antonio Brown, I just don't know who's going to cover Gronkowski on the Eagles defense. Like Alex Singleton at linebacker, not going to happen. They will probably need to maybe they put Darius Slayer on Gronkowski, but I would doubt that. They will probably have to play some bracket coverage on Rob Gronkowski. Otherwise, I just don't see how the Eagles defense can defend them, because what Drew has said, even though the Eagles defensive line is very solid, and they have also been much better against the run, they will not really get to Tom Brady in this one. And so Mike Evans and Gronkowski should probably be enough to make this at least a 1-score game. First playoff game for Nick Sirianni, first playoff game for Jalen Hurts, some experience advantage here as well. So even though I think 8.5 points might be maybe one or a half point too much, I still think the Bucs should be very good in this one. And I also like the teaser leg that Drew has mentioned.
All right, Rob, I know you're relatively neutral there on this one, so give us your 2 cents.
Yeah, I'm pretty neutral here. I think the Eagles give off a lot of Miami Dolphins vibes to me. Like in the sense that, listen, a lot of people have talked about it this week. It's not coming as a surprise, but they've beaten literally nobody this year. Like if you look at the Eagles' signature win, it's against the Broncos or it's against the Saints with Trevor Siemian. Those are the best two teams that they have beaten all season long. So while I can look at them and say, yeah, there's a lot of things that they do well here, every single time they've taken a step up in class, they've lost those games, and they've consistently lost them. In fact, I mean, we look back 5-6 weeks ago, they lost to the Giants on the road in New York. Like that's a horrible, horrible football team. So we're not that far removed from them losing outright and scoring only 7 points against the Giants defense. And then you look at Tampa Bay, they're going to get a bunch of reinforcements back on defense. Shaq Barrett, probably Levante David as well. So that's a huge boost for them. We've not really seen this defense shine at any point this season, but personnel wise, they're, nearing entirely full health at this point. So it's a very difficult game for me. I can see why someone would think about the Eagles and say, okay, they have a shot here. But when you really break it down, they've beaten the teams that they're supposed to beat. They've lost to the teams that they're supposed to lose to. And it's been a pretty consistent theme for them this year. I mean, that's not the best handicap whatsoever on the game, but it applies. The only thing I'll say here, and this is just like a subjective take more so than anything, I lean to the full game over in here. Total's 47.5. I made it 48.5. So I have a small lean to the over. But these teams have been starting very slowly on offense for several weeks in a row now. So I'm going to be paying very close attention to this game in terms of if we get a low scoring first half, I will very likely be on the second half over, provided it's not some sort of crazy inflated price. But that's kind of been a consistent theme with these teams going on 6 to 8 weeks now, where they struggle out of the gate and then they just really turn it on and score points in the latter half of the game.
All right, a live betting angle there from Rob. So Drew, jump back in before we come off this game.
I agree with Rob. That's a fantastic look. The only thing I can add is I forgot the first time these two teams matched up after the touchdown and 2-point conversion. There were 5 minutes left.
Don't start, Drew. I know me and Suma had the over in that game.
5 minutes left, and the Buccaneers literally were like, okay, you want us to drive the field and take 5 minutes off the clock and not score and do
nothing?
No problem. And honestly, that kind of, just Brady's mastery over this pass defense, which is very weak, is why you can't get involved with the Eagles in this game. And honestly, if Rob is right and the Eagles are the Dolphins and this is a 45-17 game, I'll take that. Happy with that. No problem at all.
All right. I don't think there's enough there for a bet. Obviously, the guys made the case that for a teaser leg for the Bucs, and maybe if you're looking for your money line acca, they seem pretty solid here in this one. All right, next game I want to talk about. I think this is possibly the game of the weekend for me. The 49ers against the Cowboys in Big D. Current betting as we have it at Matchbook.com. You can back the 49ers here at 2.4. The Cowboys at 1.66. The 49ers are getting a 3-point start at 1.98. The Cowboys at 1.94 -3. And it's a flat 50 is the total and slightly shaded towards the over. And Suma, in terms of a bookmaking game and a handicapping game, this 3 is absolutely spot on, isn't it?
Yes, I would think so. Hands down, I think for any analyst out there, for any NFL fan, probably the best matchup on the board. I mean, Cowboys and the playoffs are always a great game to watch. But the 49ers might just have one of the best offenses in the playoff field right now, even with Jimmy Garoppolo occasionally throwing the ball to underneath linebackers. There was a stretch earlier in the season, I think it was between week 4 and 7. There was Jimmy Garoppolo out for 1.5 games. George Kittle was on IR. I think Deebo Samuel also had a groin injury at some point. And really, since Garoppolo was back and since George Kittle was back, this is a top 3 offense, or at least top 5 offense by basically every efficiency metric out there. And they're facing a Cowboys defense that has been playing lights out, especially over the course of the second half of the season. They might have the best pass rush in the playoff right now, with Micah Parsons not even playing a full-time edge rush position, with Randy Gregory, with DeMarcus Lawrence. But the 49ers actually have the perfect offense to counter that. They have a good offensive line. I think Trent Williams should be back. Highest graded left tackle, I think, of the past decade this season. And they have all the ingredients and basically the scheme to kick out those guys on the ground and just run the ball down the Cowboys' throats. And I would not be shocked to see that on Sunday. And also in the passing game, I mean, Kyle Shanahan against a super aggressive Dan Quinn defense. I think this is like the perfect matchup for Kyle Shanahan to find his matchups with Debo, with Kittle, with Brendan Ayuk, with Eli Mitchell on all these toss plays. And I'm really interested to see what the Cowboys are going to counter. Of course, they are favorites for a reason. They're at home. They have been a very good team. If you adjust all their efficiency metrics for the stretches where they were down several players, Dak Prescott had that injury. Tyron Smith was out like 3 or 4 games. They were without Amari Cooper for 2 games. So if you try to adjust all those metrics, the Cowboys are also a very good team. But I think the 49ers have the offense to really do some damage in that game. And then it will be very interesting how the Cowboys offense counters, because that offense has been very inconsistent. Kellen Moore has had his up and downs. I think Tony Pollard is the much more efficient rusher than Zeke Elliott, but they are still trying to get their run game going primarily via Zeke, and that rushing attack was not great. 49ers have a very stout front 7. They are top 5 against the run. They have their vulnerabilities in the secondary, but the Cowboys don't always tend to attack those mismatches. So just a fascinating game. I think 3 is also a solid market price. At 3.5, I would like to consider the 49ers here. And I think this smells like one of the games where we should not be surprised to see an upset, in my opinion. But it all comes down to what number you're getting.
And that's it, Suma. Just before I go to Rob, Suma, plus 3.5, if I offered you the minus 120 or 1.83 that's there at matchbook.com, is that just paying a bit too much for that hook, or what way would you play it?
It's probably paying a little bit much, but I also like that because 3.5, even though you're paying some juice, I think is a pretty solid number for this matchup specifically, which could be a close one in the end, and with all the upside that you can get from the 49ers offense, in my opinion.
Rob, Suma touched on there in terms of the Cowboys defense. I think obviously metrically they measure up quite well. But I don't know, was there a few worries in that Cardinals game a couple of weeks ago? If that Arizona offense kind of had to run on them a lot of time, and bar those red zone inefficiencies that has beset that Cardinals team, you would probably fancy the 49ers to convert a lot more of them with their scheme and whatnot. Is that a worry for you as a Cowboys fan?
It is. Actually, when I was watching games in Week 18, and I was basically rooting for any scenario where the Cowboys wouldn't face the 49ers, I felt they had a better chance if they ended up with the Rams or the Cardinals again or something along those lines. I don't think the 49ers are a great matchup for them. With that said, I think this is the right number on the game. Like I'm as close to 3 as you could possibly get. If we were to move off 3 to 2.5, I'd be interested in the Cowboys. If we move off 3 to 3.5, I'm interested in the 49ers because I think that Dallas by exactly 3 is such a high likely outcome in this game. But for sure, the Cowboys defense is concerning. A lot of their EPA this year has been basically because of turnovers. Suma mentioned, the 49ers healthy, but you look at offensively, when George Kittle and Jimmy G have both been on the field this year together, the 49ers are fifth in EPA in the NFL, 7th in success rate. And they attack the middle of the field a lot through the passing game, which is a major area of weakness for the Cowboys defense because they have Leighton Vander Esch and Keanu Neal, who are the weak points of that defense, covering the middle of the field. I think this is a great matchup for George Kittle and exactly what the 49ers want to do. And my biggest concern overall is if we really break down what the Cowboys have done over the course of the past couple months, the reality is that during that time, they've beat up on a lot of teams that have had backups playing, teams with COVID situations, or the Giants, basically. Like those are who the Cowboys have beaten up on. Anytime that they've had a step up in class in the last couple months, they lost by double digits in Kansas City. They lost at home to the Raiders on Thanksgiving. They lost to the Cardinals at home a couple Sundays ago. So they've
Broncos.
Yeah, I mean, it's been kind of a struggle for them to get things to be consistent with their both sides of the ball. So I don't really love the matchup for Dallas. With that said, I think that there's definitely still some uncertainty with the Jimmy G thumb injury. Played very well in the second half last week, and 49ers had 500 yards of total offense. So that's a concern. I will say I've talked about this in the past on the Matchbook pod, a lot of content I do before. Should Jimmy G have to leave the game at any point and Trey Lance comes in, I think Trey Lance is a big downgrade. Not a big downgrade, definitely a downgrade. However, I don't know how the Cowboys offense would be able to react to that in game, because you prepare for Jimmy G all week, who's one type of quarterback, pocket passer. Now all of a sudden you get someone completely different. We have seen times this year where a quarterback of a different style comes into a game mid-game. They look very well in that and are able to move the ball on a defense. So there is some upside. Like, I'm not too worried if Jimmy G has to leave the game, although I think Lance is a downgrade. I think he's capable. But yeah, it's a long-winded way, Sully, of me saying that. I think this is very, very on point. I mean, I can understand why anyone would grab that early number on the 49ers. I completely get it. But where we're at now, I think Dallas -3 is appropriately priced.
Yeah, and Drew, I think you want to get the market to -2.5 for the Cowboys. But does it get there? Is it more likely to go that way than the other way?
It was trending that way for a while. Didn't get there. It's gone back. So I think that ship has sailed. This likely stays at 3 now, and they probably write a lot of action on this game both ways.
Yeah. And hope it lands on 3. Yeah.
Well,
or not.
I mean, if I can only imagine the middle liability that would be present if this does get to 2.5. So I think that's probably part of the dynamics that is keeping us here. I would say that in general, they covered, I think, pretty fairly the matchups and some of the key factors in this one. I would only be able to add that there is a little bit of a whiff of, hey, the Cowboys haven't beaten anyone. Niners really haven't either. Niners' schedule has also been pretty lopsided in terms of when they've played up. A lot of the EPA stuff that you guys are quoting when the team was healthy, it also happened against their weaker opponents. And so there is, while in back of my head, the fact that the Niners have some experience, they got some vets, they have Shanahan, who I love as a coach, and they have, they have a physical nature that they can go out and kind of protect a lead, with their running attack. Like, all that is all positive, and that makes them dangerous against all of the other competitors in the NFC. However, just in general, I don't love them playing from behind in this game. If they find themselves at a deficit, we know the Cowboys are not a team that takes their foot off the gas at all. Even if they are, a couple scores up, they're going to continue to press. They're going to continue to try to score touchdowns. And if this is Jimmy G now has to make precision throws down the field 20 yards to get these, the Niners back into this game, then I think you can pretty much put a bow on this one. And so the fact that there is a real game state that plays so favorably for the Cowboys has me not interested in being on the Niners in this spot. And in general, I agree 100%. The Cowboys defense is overrated, period, end of story. They have beaten up on bad teams. They have done it with turnovers. They have, in general, some very soft spots. Ironically, they're not great against they give up a lot of yards after the catch, which is how the Niners make all of their offense. They give up, they have a decent amount of missed tackles, but ultimately it's not enough of an edge here for me to get involved one way or the other. I think 3 is fair. We're not going to see 2.5. And if I had to lean on the side on the total, it would be to the over, but it's pretty fair at 51.
Yeah, I don't think there's enough there for anyone to get us in a bet here, guys. Unless someone wants to ride roughshod over everyone else and just. But I think a lot of people. Sorry, Rob.
I think the scrolling bar at the bottom of the screen tells you everything you need to know. Would like Cowboys -2.5. Would like 49ers 3.5. 3 is
would like a lot of stuff. Yeah.
Can I get a price on Dak Prescott to be MVP in this game? No.
MVP.
Nickelodeon valuable.
Yes, Nickelodeon game. Sludge and slime. Yeah.
He seems like the kind of guy that that gets the fan support for MVP. So
yeah.
I agree with that. All right, let's move on, guys. I don't think there's enough there. Like we said, there's a lot of wishing and hoping, but we're not quite getting there. The market is just spot on. It can happen that way. Every now and again, the market makers get it right. Steelers Chief, a lot of people complaining about this being the late game on Sunday night. For us on this side of the Atlantic, it is quite a relief, let me tell you. I'm quite happy to go to bed on Sunday night and leave this one be. Steelers are in the playoffs, don't know how. 6.2, you can back them here if you do fancy the upset of all upsets in Arrowhead. 1.16, you can back the Chiefs. 12.5 is the main line. Chiefs laying that number, of course, at 1.99, and you can back the Steelers at 1.91 or minus 110, and 46 is the total. Rob Pizzola, I'll be honest, looking at, even just to look at this total for a second of 46, if we were to work out those numbers, it's about 29 and 17 in the team totals. If somebody put up 17.5 on the Steelers team total, I would have probably one of my biggest bets of my lifetime on the under here. Is it that obvious, Rob, or am I getting away from it? Like I don't know where the Steelers score here. I just can't see it.
You would have to sweat a lot of garbage time, like a lot of garbage time, because the Chiefs are going to probably be in a game state where they are leading and the Steelers are going to have to throw. So that would be my concern. Now, if they posted those team totals, I'd be very likely to take the Chiefs team total over on that number. I'm going to pull a page out of Suma's book from early in the year where he was banging those Chiefs team totals overs. But like we saw this game a few weeks ago. We have a very recent game between these two teams to draw from. I don't know what the Steelers can do to change the results here unless they come up with the best game plan of all time. But Kansas City didn't have Travis Kelce in that game either. He was on the COVID list. Mahomes still went 23 of 30, 3 touchdowns. The game only wasn't more lopsided than the final score because Mahomes threw 5 passes in the second half. Like they just basically sat on the lead and said, okay, Pittsburgh, you're going to have to do something. The Steelers averaged 4.3 yards per play in that game, which is terrible, but it's even more terrible when you consider that they trailed for literally the entire game. And, you look at the Steelers, their offensive line this year, they have a 49% pass block win rate. That's the second lowest mark in the entire league. The only team worse was the Miami Dolphins. You go up against the Chiefs defensive line, which is the strength of their defense. They finished the season with the 5th best pressure rate. Huge mismatch with a quarterback that is, completely cooked, immobile, can't really do anything from behind center. I don't really understand where, it's one of those games where I think that they've hung a very high number in the hopes that people would take the Steelers, and there's like a value bet on the Steelers. I cannot get to that. Like the Pittsburgh Steelers were 24th in DVOA this year. 24th. They were behind the Chicago Bears and the Washington football team, and they are in the playoffs playing the Chiefs. If we use weighted DVOA, which is a better reflection of how the teams are playing at the end of the season, the Steelers are 26th. You know who was 25th? The New York Jets. Down the stretch, the Steelers were playing worse than the Jets. So I'm not going to sit here and make an argument for the Steelers. It's football. Anything can happen. If they win the game, I mean, I've seen all sorts of stuff happen in this league. Fine, but you're not getting me to put my money on the Steelers. Maybe I would even consider putting the Chiefs money line in every play I have this weekend as part of a parlay or something like that, because I just don't see a path to success for Pittsburgh in this game.
Hey, I swear to God, Mike Tomlin, just give him that gold jacket, put him in Canton, because honestly, I have no idea how this works at all. And you just feel so sorry that we're seeing Ben Roethlisberger this week. How much fun would it be to see Justin Herbert throwing howitzers and 4th down over and over again? Suma, I don't think we need to spend too long on this, man. I don't know if there's a bet here for you, but give me your thoughts on this one.
First of all, I had a very bad year on win totals, and one of the win totals was Pittsburgh under 8.5, and I still don't know how I have lost that. I mean, they had overtime wins against the Bears. Then I think against Geno Smith, they also had an overtime win. So I just don't know how they got to 9 wins this year. Exactly as Rob said, no one could bring me to bet on the Steelers. I think that adjustment upwards, I think a couple of weeks back, we had minus 10.5. So I think anything upwards towards 12, 13 is a very good adjustment. No one could bring me to bet on the Steelers. Maybe some live opportunities. Maybe the Steelers can score first, can score a field goal on their first drive. Maybe then you can get something like a minus 10 live or so. I don't know, but you could not bring me to bet on the Steelers here.
Hey, Drew, you were looking for something to tease with your Bucks one earlier. This could be the one with the Chiefs.
Yeah, I think that makes a ton of sense. I agree with the breakdowns in general. Market gives the Steelers 13, 15% chance to win this game. That feels high. I think realistically, all of the points that were made were fair. If you're going to back a dog against the Chiefs, this is not complicated. We must have said this 100 times the last two seasons. If you're going to back a dog against the Pat Mahomes Chiefs, it better be a dog that can score. And the Steelers are not that team. And they could even. We've seen teams backfire where they score early and that wakes, the sleeping giant and makes the Chiefs more aggressive. And, now you've stirred up the hornet's nest or whatever. You could see that happening here. But more realistically, I think this is just a brutal mismatch for the Steelers every way you want to, try to draw it up. I'm not running to the window to lay the points with the Chiefs because there are some true difference makers on the defensive side of the football for Pittsburgh, enough where I can see we're not getting as clean a performance as we have in years past with the Chiefs. Maybe the offense is a little creaky here. Maybe there's a little lack of urgency here. Maybe, put to the test, the Steelers play with their backs against the wall like they did against the Vikings and they score a bunch of second half points. Those are all possible outcomes here. I think ultimately you protect yourself with the teaser as opposed to just going out and laying, needing 2 touchdowns to cover. The only other thing I can add about this game is the first time these two teams played, it was 30-0. And the great Mike Tomlin kicked a field goal with waning minutes of the third quarter to make it 30-3. And that really, if that didn't sum up the inequity between the teams, I don't know what else could. I think the fact that they put this game in primetime on Sunday irks me. And ultimately probably won't watch much of this one.
Yeah, it irks you. That's why he's going to the Hall of Fame. He doesn't listen to the analytics. Suma, come on, give us a first half angle, Sobel.
Yeah, so I've seen this on Twitter quite a few times today and also in the comments now. I think if you can get -7 first half, probably not a bad look, especially since the Chiefs have started very fast in recent weeks and Pittsburgh could never do anything in the first half. So I think that's probably a solid look as well.
All right, we got 7.5, 1.95. Get you there? Come on. Well, we're relying on bets. Can I get you
I worry a hair that the Chiefs you can run a game state. If Najee Harris comes out and has the first half of his life and they are playing keep away and just the Chiefs only get 2 possessions in the first half and both of them, TJ Watt's playing up and Minkah Fitzpatrick's disrupting the pass play. And oh, by the way, Tyreek Hill heel injury. There's enough of a red flag around the Chiefs offense being clean early and the possibility that the Steelers can play keep away out of the gate that I'm not involved in the first half play.
Damn it! I thought we could get another play on that. Right, the number didn't really suit any as -7.5. But look, if someone has an interest there,
all I know is who over in Europe pulled the strings to get to throw this garbage game into prime time, so you don't have to watch it. Somebody over in Europe was responsible for.
Oh, God bless them.
I will not watch it at all.
This is a night to get some shut-eye. All right, nothing there for us. Last game, Monday Night Football. We do have a bet in this one. Jordan, so you're going to lead us off with this one. And the Cardinals and the Rams. Stop me if you've seen this before. Again, bit of repetition going on here. You can back the Cards 2.66. The Rams are 1.55. Cardinals getting a 4-point start at 1.92. You can back the Rams -4 even money. 49.5 is the total. Slightly shade towards the under. Drew, there are some concerns over Mr. Stafford, the quarterback here. We do know that he hasn't got a terrific record in the playoffs, obviously, albeit with the Detroit Lions. But you still like the Rams laying the number.
Yeah, Stafford is 0-3 in the playoffs, although he should have beat the Cowboys that one year that they picked up that flag.
That was such a fraudulent win for us.
That one was a weird year of the playoffs in general, because wasn't the next game the Dez catch? No catch? I think it was, right? I'm pretty sure those were back-to-back weeks.
It's called reverse karma is what that's called.
Yeah.
Money more now,
yeah. Nothing. There's nothing you want more than the refs really being influential in determining playoff games, right? By the way, kind of, would be par for the course for this season if that happens this year. Yeah. But we'll set all of that aside. And I'm going a little bit against the grain here, because if you wanted to have success betting the NFC West this year, what did you do? You backed the dog. because in general, the margin between the two teams in the NFC West, regardless of which teams you pulled out of the hat, was virtually nil. And so if you were getting points, you go with the dog. That was the general recipe for success in this division. I'm putting that on the shelf, and I'm going with an older play here, which is there's a little bit of a round robin among these coaches. And I think you guys, and really among these teams, in general, that Shanahan, he eats McVay's lunch, takes his milk money, whatever you want to call it. He bullies McVay in that matchup. And in general, McVay and the Rams have had absolutely no problem getting it done against the Cardinals, particularly in the Cliff Kingsbury era. Now, you people would look at this year's matchups and be like, well, that first game, the Cardinals were just unbelievably good in that one, and they waxed the Rams in that one. They have a puncher's chance here. I would say that was an exceptionally unfortunate situation for the Rams. They come off of, basically their early season Super Bowl. They prep all season to have the superlative game plan to take on the Bucs at home. They get the hard-fought win, and then they turn around the next week and they let down. And there were some fluky turnovers in that game, especially early, that really tilted that contest in favor of the Cardinals, and then the game got away from them. Cardinals obviously were playing a lot better at that time. They have not evolved. They have not made improvements in their scheme. If anything, things have devolved, and they have no longer have DeAndre Hopkins available for them. They have not really been able to manifest a second threat in the wide receiver, even though at times this season, AJ Green looked like that guy. Christian Kirk looked like he could be that guy. Rondale Moore looked like he could be that guy. None of it has really come to fruition. And so I don't see enough offensive firepower here for the Cardinals to hang with a Rams team that has some really nice matchups in the passing game against a secondary with the Cardinals that we kind of suspected all along was frauds, and that the trap door was going to open, and that things were going to fall apart for that defense. And sure enough, at long last, it finally did. I think you got the best effort you were going to get out of the Cardinals that upset over the Cowboys, and realistically, this is not a great matchup for them. And the only thing I can finally put a final point on this is I told myself a long time ago I was going to fade Cliff Kingsbury in his first ever playoff start. And opponent be damned. And here we are. He's taking on Sean McVay and the Rams. Stafford gets his first ever playoff win, and they cover the 4 points. So give me the Rams.
The day has arrived. You never thought it would come. I love it. Come on, Drew. -4 the Rams at even money. Rob Pizzola, your thoughts on this one?
I like the under a bit here.
Okay.
So I kind of don't really like the side because this is a matchup of two teams that I would have loved to fade. To be on, I was just really hoping that I could bet against both these teams this week. But I'll make a case for the under. If you take the regular season and we divide it in two, so we take weeks 1 to 9. Arizona was the number 1 EPA per play team on offense. The Rams were number 3. They were both top 5, respectively, in success rate as well. Now, if we look at weeks 10 to 18, well, they both dropped outside the top 10 in EPA. Arizona's 12th. The Rams are 15th. The reality is that these are not elite offenses anymore. They're slightly above average offenses. Arizona's red zone touchdown percentage has fallen off a cliff ever since DeAndre Hopkins has been injured. All the fantasy guys out there would say, oh, DeAndre Hopkins wasn't having a good season anyways, but they're not accounting for the fact that he draws all this attention in the red zone, and he can go up and make some big catches that other guys on their team are not capable of. So they went from a 60% touchdown team in the red zone all season to 44% now without DeAndre Hopkins in the lineup. Then you have the Rams. I mean, I don't really have to talk about Matt Stafford. We've seen it all in the last month. 10 interceptions in the last 4 games. I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's a back problem. I don't know if it's just the same trajectory as Jared Goff every year with the Rams, and for some reason their quarterbacks just stink down the stretch every year. I mean, my biggest worry with Matt Stafford in this game would be that he throws a pick 6, which cooks the under. Like, that's a legitimate worry. But I just don't see the Rams offense being nearly as explosive as they were earlier on in the year. And then the last thing I will say, this is just like an added bonus if he ends up playing. But J.J. Watt is going to practice tomorrow. The expectation is that he is actually going to be able to play on Monday, which is very surprising because they thought he was going to be completely done for the season. Who knows what impact he's going to have? All I know is that when J.J. Watt got injured, the Cardinals were the second best defense in DVOA and in EPA. And they had played the Titans, they'd played the Vikings, the Rams, the 49ers. So it's not like they just beat up on bad teams early in the year. Post J.J. Watt, they dropped to 23rd in EPA. So I think having him on the field is huge, especially in shoring up the run defense. The Rams do like to run the ball as well, and they do have some tricky east-west stuff that they run on offense as well every now and then. So I really do like Watt's presence, even if he's just on the field. I think that's a huge boost for that defense going forward. So a little small thing there, but overall, this number to me is a little bit too high. I like the under in the game.
Yeah, familiarity, I can't even say that word, breeds contempt. It also breeds unders, generally speaking, with these divisional games. It's been a long show. We're over the hours. Suma, wrap it up for us, mate. Any thoughts on this one? I don't know if you have a bet here.
Yeah, not a lot of thoughts on this one. I think it's a pretty decent adjustment from the last game. I mean, the Rams had their COVID issues. I think I had -2.5 on the Cardinals before their COVID issues and still lost that one. I think it closed like 3.5 or something. So even from the pre-COVID news, 2.5, there's some significant adjustment made. But I also think there's a reason for it. Not Andrew Hopkins. That Cardinals defense is not as good as they were earlier in the season. I think J.J. Watt would be a huge boost, like Rob has mentioned, especially in the passing game and maybe on some third downs where he can go inside and they have like 3 solid edge rushers coming after Stafford, who has not looked good in the second half against the Niners as soon as he was backed up and he faced pressure. So also there's the uncertainty with Matthew Stafford. Will he have a clean game? Will he have like 1 or 2 completely dumb picks in his own red zone? I think there's an increased chance for that. Overall, I expect a pretty tight game, but I still think that the -4 for the Rams, I can get to that number. I think that's priced very properly right now because I still think the Rams overall are the better team. They can move the ball through the air. McVay has usually owned their defense from Vance Joseph, and even if J.J. Watt is going to play, probably like 50% snap count. So I think the Rams are the better team, and I can get to that number, but no opinion either way. Also no opinion on the total.
Yes, look, Rams -4 is 2.0 and under 49.5 at 1.89 is the play there from Rob. Very quick recap of what we have. This won't take very long. It's a light week, but you know what? Quality over quantity. These are very, very tricky games and exceptionally well handicapped and priced. Raiders +6 at 1.87 in the same game under 49 at 1.95. The Pats +4 at 1.99. The Rams -4 at 2.0 and under 49.5 in the same game at 1.89. I'm going to call out your guys' best bets, please, because we've covered them already. Drew's best bet, you're taking the Rams -4 at 2.0, fading Cliff Kingsbury. Yeah, love to see it. Suma's best bet, Raiders +6 at 1.87. And Rob, you're wrapping it up with the Patriots +4 at 1.99. We're heavy on Saturday night, guys. Saturday night will make or break us. And we'll have a few quid in for the teasers on Sunday. That'll be fun. All right. My thanks to Drew, Rob, Suma, terrific job as ever, guys. Don't forget, check out a recap of those best insights.matchbook.com. If you're enjoying the content, please leave us a preferential review on your preferred podcast app, or if you're on YouTube, give us a thumbs up, click the subscribe button, and you can stay with us for the rest of the playoffs and the Super Bowl. Best of luck with your wildcard bets. Goodbye for now.